So hello everyone. The topic that was given to me is English Renaissance, or some call it the Elizabethan period literature. So it says here that the Elizabethan period, spanning from 1558 to 1603, was a remarkable era in English history and literature, named after Queen Elizabeth I. This period witnessed a flourishing of literary creativity, characterized by the works of some of the most renowned writers in English language. This report explores the key features, notable authors, and major literary genres of the Elizabethan period. So, we have according to my research, we have the key features of Elizabethan literature. So, there are two key features of the Elizabethan literature. Number one is Renaissance influence. Number two is versatility of themes. So let's talk about Renaissance influence first. We say here that the Elizabethan era was deeply influenced by the Renaissance, which brought about a renewed interest in classical learning, art, and culture. This influence is evident in the literature of the time, with a focus on humanism, individualism, and fascination with the classics. So second key features is the versatility of themes. It's easier that Elizabethan literature covered a wide range of themes, from love and beauty to politics and morality. It reflected the complexities of the period, including the religious and political upheaval. After the key features of Elizabethan literature, we also have the notable authors. According to my research, I have a one, two, three, four. I have four notable authors of the Elizabethan period literature. So number one, William Shakespeare. It says here that undoubtedly, the most famous figure of Elizabethan literature, Shakespeare's works are such as Romeo and Juliet, Hamlet, and Macbeth continue to be celebrated of their timeless themes and masterful use of language. Next to William Shakespeare is Christopher Marlowe, known for his powerful blank verse plays. Marlowe's Dr. Faustus is a classic example of Elizabethan tragedy. Next to Christopher Marlowe is Edmund Spenser. His epic poem, The Faerie Queene, celebrated the reign of Queen Elizabeth I and remains a significant work in the era. Next to Edmund Spenser is Ben Jonson. Ben Jonson, a prolific playwright and poet, Jonson's works, including Volpone and Every Man in His Humor, showcased his wit and satirical style. Now, we also have the major. So remember, we have four notable authors: William Shakespeare, Christopher Marlowe, Edmund Spenser, and Ben Jonson. And we also have the major literary genres in Elizabethan literature. Number one is drama. We have three actually: drama, poetry, and prose. But let me talk about drama first. So drama, the Elizabethan era is often called the golden age of English drama. The theatre thrived, and many of Shakespeare's and Marlowe's plays were first performed during this time. Number two is poetry. The era produced exquisite poetry, with Edmund Spenser's The Faerie Queene and Shakespeare's sonnets standing out as prime examples. And next to that, third one is prose. While drama and poetry were more prominent, prose works like Sir Philip Sidney's The Defense of Poesy contributed to the era's literary landscape. So, in conclusion of my report, um, the Elizabethan period remains a golden age in English literature, marked by its rich tapestry of themes, influential authors, and the enduring legacy of its works. The literature of this era not only reflected the spirit of the time, but also laid the foundation for the future development of English literary tradition, making it an integral part of literary history. So that's all for my report. Hope you understand everything that I said. You can refer to the handout if you want to look for if you didn't understand anything. So that's all. My name is Moses Alidum, and thank you. That's all.
And Shakespearean sonnet is a poems or of expressive ideas and thoughts that are layered with multiple meanings and have two things in common, which are all sonnets have 14 lines and all sonnets are written in iambic pentameter. And Shakespearean sonnet composed of 14 lines and most divided into three quatrains. The Shakespeare's sonnet have a rhyme scheme, which is the A B C D E F and G. Is also known as English sonnet. And we have the Shakespearean sonnet, which are poems of expressive ideas and thoughts that are layered with multiple meanings. And this sonnet is composed of 14 lines and 3 quatrains. We have Shakespeare wrote 154 sonnets, published in his quarto in 1609. The most common themes are covering is time, mortality, love, beauty, and jealousy. We have the rhyme scheme, which are A B C D and others. This sonnet is also known as English sonnet. Here is an example of English sonnet, which this is the rhyme scheme, and you may place letters or numbers to correspond, and each line is composed of 10 syllables, and these are the 14 lines. Iambic pentameter refers to the rhythm. Basically, each line of the poem has 10 syllables and every other syllable is stressed. For example, New York. The second syllable is stressed, while the new is unstressed. And so with the sonnet.
So let's talk about the Shakespearean drama. We all know that Shakespeare is known as the father of English drama, and he is known as England's national poet and the Bard of Avon. His works, including collaborations, consist of 38 plays, 154 sonnets, 2 long narrative poems, and some other verses. And his plays have been translated into every major living language and are performed more often than those of any other dramatist. So an example of Shakespearean drama is the one we are all familiar with, which is the Romeo and Juliet, and another one is the Hamlet. We all know, also known as the tragedy of Hamlet. So Hamlet is all about the Prince of Denmark, in which the Prince Hamlet attempts to exact revenge against his uncle, the one who murdered his father. And this is also considered as Shakespeare's longest play with 29,551 words, and it was set in Denmark. And Hamlet is considered among the most powerful and influential tragedies in the England language, with a story capable of seemingly endless retelling and adaptation by others. So let's proceed to the Shakespearean drama characteristics. Shakespeare wrote 37 plays in about 24 years, and his plays were written for performance. And his dramas can be divided into histories, tragedies, and comedies. An example of his dramas under history is the King John, Richard II, the Third, and Henry the Fourth, Henry the Fifth, and Henry the Eighth. And an example of his play under tragedies is the Romeo and Juliet, the Hamlet, and the Macbeth. And also an example of his play under comedies is The Merchant of Venice, The Jew Shylock, and All's Well That Ends Well. And the protagonists in the early plays are historical figures. This includes the rulers of England. And in his play Hamlet, it is considered to be the epitome of the Renaissance, in which the protagonist achieved his perfection only after death. And in his play Richard III, it is the epitome of Machiavellian evil, in which Shakespeare balances between the role of the king and the role of the man. So, as the dramatist of the Renaissance age, Shakespearean plays focus on the man, exploring his weaknesses, depravities, flaws, and etc. So, his plays have been divided into 5 acts. So, what are these 5 acts? These 5 acts are the one we are know, which is the um, exposition, rising action, climax, falling action, denouement or resolution, or we also know that as the plot of the story. However, the division was imposed on the Shakespearean play by Nicholas Rowe, and one of the first editors of Shakespeare. So most of the Shakespearean plays are problem plays in which the playwright do not provide any solutions and audience are supposed to decide. And Shakespeare in his play goes in the depth of human behavior and redefines the geography of the human soul. And his final plays move against the wave of Jacobean theater that focused on blood, tragedy, and social comedy. And another one of his play, which is The Tempest, has traces of colonialism. So this play is what many consider the play an allegory of European colonization, and throughout the centuries, Caliban's character has featured prominently in arguments that defend or resist against colonialist tyranny. So that's all about Shakespearean drama.
And now let's discuss about the most famous story written by William Shakespeare, which is the story of Romeo and Juliet. And I know that all of us was familiar of this story. But before we proceed about the story, let me discuss about the background of it. So, the story of Romeo and Juliet was first published in an unauthorized cartoon in 1597, but in 1599, an authorized part two appeared, and there the story was able to be substantially longer and more reliable. And Shakespeare's principal source for the plot was the tragical history of Romeo and Juliet in 1562. This is a long narrative poem by English poet Arthur Brooke. And now let's have a quick summary about the story of Romeo and Juliet. So the story of Romeo and Juliet started in Verona, Italy, wherein the family of Capulets holds a party for an arranged marriage of Paris and Juliet. And then Romeo, the son of Montague, disguises himself and crashes the party with his friends in hopes of seeing Rosaline, which is his previous lover. Instead, Romeo falls in love at first sight when he meets Juliet, and the two become very attracted to each other. However, na-discover nila na yung, yung pamilya nila ay came from opposing families and realize their true love. And at the same time, Tybalt, who is Juliet's cousin, recognizes Romeo and drives Romeo and his friends out from the Capulet house. So, nung nakita ni Tybalt sina Romeo, inaalis na ito dun sa party. So, doon, paalis na yung mga friends ni Romeo. But then, Romeo stays behind to find Juliet. And when he sees Juliet in her window, they confess their love for one another and agreed to marry the next day. So magpapakasal sila sa susunod na araw or kinabukasan. So Romeo runs to Friar Lawrence, who agrees to help as he believes Romeo and Juliet marriage will end the feud between the Montagues and Capulets. So naniniwala si Friar Lawrence na sa pamamagitan ng pagpapakasal nilang dalawa, matatapos yung alitan sa pamilya ng Capulets at Montague. And with the help of Juliet's nurse and Friar Lawrence, Romeo and Juliet married in secret. So, itong si Tybalt, hinamon niya ng away itong si Romeo, but then Romeo declines the fight and remains calm while being disrespected by Tybalt. And ito ay ikinagalit ng best friend ni Romeo, which is Mercutio. So, nagsimula naman or hinamon niya naman si Tybalt ng away. Romeo tries to stop the fight, but Mercutio accidentally killed. Enraged, Romeo chases Tybalt down and kills him. So, nung namatay si Tybalt, the Prince of Verona banishes Romeo for his crimes, and before Romeo leaves for Mantua, Friar Lawrence helps Romeo and Juliet stay the night together. And meanwhile, the Lord Capulet arranges for Paris and Juliet to wed the next day. Juliet is upset because she does not want to marry Paris, and this angers her parents as they do not know about Juliet's secret affair with Romeo. So there, Juliet asks Friar Lawrence for help again, and he gives her a sleeping potion that will make her appear dead. And the next morning, the Capulet family finds Juliet in her bed and believes that she had died. And Friar Lawrence sends a messenger to inform Romeo about Juliet's plan and instruct Romeo to collect a sleeping Juliet from the Capulet house. So, dito na yung pinaka-most intense part of this story because the very important message did not reach Romeo in time due to the plague that delayed the messenger's journey. Instead, Romeo hears the news Juliet's death and buys himself a poison. So, bumili din siya ng poison. And Romeo goes to Juliet's tomb in the Capulet's house, kills a grieving Paris, and drinks the poison and dies before Juliet's wake up. So, bago pa nakarating si Friar Lawrence, late na siya. He tells Juliet what had happened and Juliet stabs herself from heartbreak. So, dun namatay yung dalawang magkasintahan. And then, Friar Lawrence, the prince, the Capulets, and the family of Montagues come together and agree to make peace following the children's death. So, dun nagtapos yung love story nila. So, napakasaklap lang dahil kailangan pa nilang mamatay para lang magkasundo yung kanilang pamilya. And that's all for the story of Romeo and Juliet. And thank you for listening.